Well, it's been kind of funny watching how 2016 is having a moment right now in 2026. People are posting photos of what they were up to a decade ago. I'm seeing big beards, skinny jeans, and craft beer. Microbreweries were buzzing a decade ago. They exploded in popularity in part because people wanted an alternative to mass-produced beer. Why order a Coors Light when you can get a beer made with local hops, flavored with spruce tips picked by hand? But fast forward to now, and the industry across Canada has flattened a bit, and breweries are looking for creative ways to stay afloat. I'm Leisha Grabinski. Today on Blue Sky, we take stock of the craft beer scene in Saskatchewan. Some breweries tell us that times are good, and others are getting inventive, adding cocktail mixes to their stock and consolidating. In 2023, Pile of Bones Brewing merged with Nokomis Craft Ale. In December, 9 Mile announced it was entering into a joint venture with Blackbridge Brewing. And so, we want to hear from you. Are you still seeking out small batch brews, or have you turned to another beverage, a hard iced tea, or maybe a mocktail? Give us a call today at 1-800-716-2221. You can also email us bluesky@cbc.ca. Well, let's start things off where the craft brew is brewing. The CBC's Nicole Huck stopped by Rebellion Brewing Company in Regina. This is their 11th year operating out of their Dudney Avenue location. Nicole sat down with CEO Mark Heisey to find out what's on tap for their business.
Yeah. Here, let me pour you some lentil beer. January is traditionally a slow time of year for the beer business, but we're busy as can be. We've been staffing up. We're expanding into Saskatoon, planning out all sorts of events. We've got Frost coming up and well into the summer. Just anything and everything you can think of. Brewing lots of beers for summer. Everyone's excited about Dudney being reopened, so we're making plans for that. Like everything you can imagine. There is not enough hours in the day to do everything.
We're standing in the tap room, which is on Dudney Avenue, and for people who are outside of Regina, help understand why Dudney being open is a big deal here.
Right, so for the last 2 years, Dudney's been under complete construction. What's really unique about our business on Dudney is that we are the only business on Dudney that is entirely reliant on that street being opened. 2 years ago, the street was completely closed to us for 7 weeks, which was quite painful. I was assured it would only be closed for 2 months. This year, it actually was closed for almost 8 months. That's pretty tough to run a business, so that was a lot of pain and suffering, but we got through that, and now it looks fantastic, which we knew it would, and so we're very, very excited that it's done and we can move on with that.
So you're talking about expanding to Saskatoon. Tell me more.
So we just signed a lease on a space there at Gather Local Market, and it's very exciting because we have opened a tap room there. We're licensed through the SLGA. We've been serving beer, just getting some renos underway, and we want to bring that same exciting experience of our tap room here that people just seem to love. They love the vibrancy and the community and the excitement and energy, and so we're trying to replicate that and offer that to the people of Saskatoon as well.
We hear across the country some craft breweries that they say this is tough times, that the cost of brewing has gone up. People don't have the same money to spend on craft brewery prices, but meanwhile you're expanding. So how do you square the peg there?
Yeah, so it is a very complicated industry situation right now. We obviously went through a boom period where there was a lot of breweries opening, and there was a lot of excitement and hype for craft breweries, but that hasn't stopped. What has happened, as you mentioned, there's economic pressures, there's inflation. Frankly, there's probably a few too many breweries that did open. You kind of get the bandwagon jumpers and folks that think, oh, I'm going to get rich quick. How hard can it be? All that sort of thing. So it's very, very complicated. I'll try to save you that. But what's critical, right? And so there are breweries closing right now. There are breweries merging right now. There's insane pressures on even us, who I think are relatively successful. There's insane pressures on, basically trying to make money and keep the cash coming in the door faster than it's going out the other door. But what I can tell you, all the real data, is that craft beer consumption is on the rise. It is not going down. So there's all sorts of anecdotal stories and saying young people don't drink anymore or this or that. The numbers don't lie.
So who is drinking more?
I'm not sure if people are drinking more, and as a general rule, what you're seeing is people are trading up to quality. even despite economic pressures and whatnot, again, we can get into the whole North American drinking habits, around binge drinking and consuming, cheaply made alcohol and all that sort of stuff. People are now that do want to consume alcohol are saying, you know what, I want to do it responsibly. I want to really enjoy the quality. I enjoy the idea that by choosing a locally made beer, that I'm supporting the economy and agriculture and my neighbors, all that sorts of thing. So you're just seeing people shifting more to a better quality product and something that maybe has some meaning and some impact that's locally made. So you're definitely seeing that. Yeah, on the macro level, yeah, absolutely. Beer consumption has been decreasing for well over 20 years. This is not a new news story. And frankly, it's quite welcomed because, most of those large scale breweries, first of all, they're not making a good product. And secondly, they're not Canadian owned, let alone locally owned. All that money is just leaving Canada. Yeah, it's music to my ears when you see what's really going on at the local level with the local breweries, and that's what I mean. There's all sorts. There's really sad stories. Some of my friends have gone out of business. That's not cool. I don't enjoy that. I've had a lot of stressful nights just worrying if I'm going to be next. But what encourages me and gets me excited is that on the whole, despite all of these problems and issues, people are still choosing to support us. There we go. Cheers.
Cheers.
That's Rebellion Brewing CEO Mark Heisey speaking with Blue Sky's Nicole Huck. I'm Leisha Grabinski, and with us today on Blue Sky are three founders of some microbreweries in the province. Sean Moen is founder of 9 Mile Legacy Brewing in Saskatoon. They opened in 2015. Sean, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
Madeline Kahn is founder of High Key Brewing in Saskatoon. They opened in 2018. Their tap room moved to downtown Saskatoon in 2022. Madeline, welcome.
Thank you.
So good to have you. And then on Google Meets today, we've got Ryan Moncrief, who's founder of Rafter R Brewing in Maple Creek. They opened during the pandemic, and apparently he lived to tell the tale. What a time to open. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Welcome.
Yeah,
everybody.
Good to have all of you with us. Awesome. Okay, so we heard a little bit there from Mark at Rebellion. I want each of you, though, to take me back a few years, a decade ago. What was happening in the microbrewing scene that enticed you to open your own place? Maybe set the scene a bit. Take us back, Sean. What was happening at that time?
2016, I was had a lot less gray hair and I was rocking a top knot, as I recall. we were running a little 100-liter brewery right beside the farmers market. And we had my business partner and I, Garrett, had just come off of a couple years of traveling around the world into other breweries and learning the trade. It was, I think, a point that resonated with me from Mark's interview is that everything is relative. And I think when I think back on those times, it was extremely exciting and growth was rampant. But that's because there wasn't anything prior. We really didn't. We had a couple of breweries in the province, Paddockwood and Bushwhacker, and that was largely it. Brewster's was also in operation in Regina, but we really didn't have the full panoply of breweries in the province, and so everybody was opening. And it was just a neat time because the Saskatchewan beer drinker was able to experience really flavorful and well-made and local beer, and there was a startup culture, I think, that was really engaging for people. So that was what was going on.
Okay. Yeah. Madeline, what was going on for you? What were you watching, observing, and then what did you want to be part of, a number of years ago?
Yeah, in 2016, I was still in Calgary, Alberta, working my corporate job. I did a lot of training down in Dallas, Texas in 2013 and could see the craft beer industry down there and what it meant to the community and how fun and exciting that was. So it was always, a dream of mine to start that up in Saskatchewan. And I really saw the opportunity, end of 2015, 2016, and really worked on creating a feasible business plan and making sure it kind of worked within Saskatchewan's legislation at the time, and was looking for a brewer to kind of partner with me. So that was kind of my shift towards Saskatoon and home, and I moved in January of 2017 and made the big leap. So,
Ryan, what about you? What were you observing about a decade ago that made you want to get into it yourself?
Oh man, I'd been in the industry for about 3 years at that point, and I was just kind of taking over a lead brewing position at the brewery I was at, and it was on the Alberta side, and yeah, that industry on that side was just climbing the hill like to beat the band. So it was a super fun industry to be part of, but the one thing that like really engaged me was the family aspect of the business and how breweries work together. And it was, it was a family that just covered a lot of area. And but it also piqued my interest on a lot of other levels. The making end of it, the chemistry, the whole nine yards. Like there was a lot of check marks for me, and it didn't take me very long of being in the industry to realize this is something that I wanted to keep doing for quite some time. And it evolved into me picking out little ideas that I thought was going to work best for me and how I wanted to do things if I had my own place and so on and so forth. And come along to about 2018, and that's when the plan really started to come together then. So.
And now here you are. So what were people looking for? What was the appetite for local beer? You heard Ryan talk about that, they're just people wanting to drink a better product. Sean, what were people wanting when microbreweries were first taking off?
I think there was a real segment of consumers that were like us, that were going to international beer nights at the local pub, or making their own beer at home, because we just weren't able to get great fresh beer in Saskatchewan. And so there was definitely that segment of consumer. But the bulk of consumer was looking for cold beer that was like Pilsner or Bohemian, and so we'd have people come into the tap room in those, or the growler shop, I guess, in those early days, and they wouldn't know what an IPA was. They wouldn't know what a sour beer was. And so there was a real consumer education point, which was super, super fun. Now the consumer is fairly educated and can talk through a number of these beer styles, but I think there were certain people that were really excited to see craft beer. There were definitely a lot of people that were interested to see locally made beer, and then a whole pile of people were interested to see startup businesses and kind of local people taking it on their own and trying to grow something.
And Madeline, what were you trying to offer at that time to compete with all these other startups that were offering beer at the same time as you? How were you trying to make yourself distinct?
I think we just had a lot of fun being creative and playing around with what beer could be, and different fruits and different teas and stuff that we could incorporate into it. So it's a truly unique flavor profile of every single beer that we made at the time. I think when I got into kind of the craft beer scene, I didn't know what a sour was. I didn't really know anything about hops and IPAs and how you can use one hop a million different ways to make all these different flavor profiles and different beers. And it just really blew my mind. And I loved, going to every single different brewery and seeing how do they make their IPA? How do they make their sour? How do they make their Pilsners? And every single one is different.
And was there a real rush to come up with something truly unique? Isn't it you guys that have the London Fog?
We do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a rush. I think it was more so just talking it out and being creative. That was the fun part of it. Is what can we do? How can we make this exciting for people? What do I want to drink? What do I want to experiment with?
And Ryan, what was it like for you? Because the two people in our studio here are based in Saskatoon. We heard from Mark in Regina, but you're in Maple Creek. And so what were you trying to carve out in a community like Maple Creek?
So, yeah, every brewery's got a different MO, right? What they want to do. My dream was to open a tap room style brewery where we serve the bulk of the beer right in the front of house. So pouring fresh pints rather than shipping beer all over the place and that sort of thing. So essentially it was the idea of making a lot of traditional styles of beer, because that's really what I like to brew. There's hundreds and hundreds of fantastic beer styles out there that have been brewed for literally hundreds of years, but they kind of get swept under the rug and pushed to the wayside, sometimes with, fancy names and all kinds of, crazy ingredients that are fun and awesome. But my heart lies in super traditional styles of beer.
And Ryan, is your beer available in liquor stores? I think each of you have actually quite different. It might sound the same to people who are listening if they're not familiar with your businesses, but you all are quite different. So Ryan, are yours available in liquor stores?
No, we don't bother can anything. So everything goes out the front of the house, either in a growler, fresh poured growler. You take it home, drink it fresh, that sort of deal. Or we do a few keg sales and stuff like that to locals that have their own keg fridge at home or so on. We do have some distribution in some pubs and restaurants here and there, but we keep it keep it down to a dull roar. Like to keep it kind of small that way. So.
Okay, so let's really dig into now this moment in particular, because you are available in liquor stores, Sean, and so is High Key. And so, yeah, let's talk about the distinctions and like what is happening right now in Saskatchewan's craft brewing scene. Sean?
That is a massive question. I think in part you're nibbling on the right piece. Is there's a number of different business models. And so when an industry is born, everybody kind of starts the same way. We're probably the outlier in a lot of ways because we started so small. But generally people are starting with a tap room and a 10 hectoliter brew house, and they're trying to push into packaging, and they're selling cakes to local restaurants. And that's kind of the genesis story, I think, of a lot of the players. But as an industry continues and starts to mature, you need to really dig into what you want to do and what you're good at and what makes you money. And not those three things aren't always the same thing. You got to figure out that Venn diagram. And so for us, we've got a great production facility, excellent brew team, and we're getting better all the time at logistics and sales. And so our beer is principally found in can or in keg, and we have a little cellar door at the brewery, but we don't actually have a tap room anymore.
Because you used to. Yeah, so what was the thinking behind closing that tap room that was on 20th Street in Saskatoon?
Oh, man. The thinking behind closing the tap room was we came through the pandemic and we got the wind punched out of us, and we had to close the tap room to save the business. Largely. And now it's a fantastic comedy club, art bar theater over on 20th Street. It's got a great new life, but in business, I think the public or general public kind of loses sight of this piece with an industry that's as romanticized as ours. In business, sometimes you have to make really tough decisions, and you have to listen to your client and your market, and chart the course for your path of growth. And so we enjoyed having a tap room. It was awesome. It really fostered community. It just at that point in time in 2023, we had to make a very hard decision. We'll ultimately return to that aspect of the business, but our focus right now is on getting very good at packaging excellent beer.
But you do hope to return to having a tap room?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's just right now it's full of 9 Mile and Blackbridge cans, the spot we're going to renovate. So it's can storage at the moment because we need it.
I want to talk about the merger. Sure. But Madeline, maybe just describe your business a bit more and how you're navigating the current moment. How would you describe things?
Yeah, so we moved downtown in 2022. We made that move primarily because we wanted more community. We kind of found the North End a little bit isolating in the evenings and on the weekends because it was mostly Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 type people around there. And we've really enjoyed it. It's been a struggle, just kind of figuring out, our back of house wholesale side and making sure that that's running smoothly, and while also spending enough time with the tap room and making sure people feel welcomed and warm and can experience us as a brand. And that's kind of how they learn about High Key and our products. And so when they see it out on retail stores and in bars and restaurants, then they're like, oh, I know this product, it's great, I'm going to have it here as well.
Local.
Yeah.
But for your business model, how important is distribution? Like, how important is it for you to get your beer in a can and into a liquor store? Like, are you available outside of Saskatchewan, or still within?
Yes.
You are? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so we're available in Alberta too. Very limited SKUs. We're just kind of starting to look outside of the province of Saskatchewan, but wholesale and distribution is still very big for our business role, and we are investing in it heavily still. We're looking at equipment upgrades and quality upgrades, and trying to really refine our product and refine our beer and look at different SKUs as well, so non-beer products and water and stuff.
But are times tough right now?
I think times are tough in terms of, obviously everyone feels the same pressures with cost of ingredients going up, labor going up. People's appetite might be towards wine or cocktails, or they're not drinking at all nowadays. So you just kind of got to lean and listen to your customer and see what they're looking for. And I think we do a really good job of listening, and we're agile, right? So we're smaller. We're not as big as macro. So we can not necessarily pivot and change everything that we're doing, but we can bring out some new products and see how it works.
So what kind of new products? What are you hearing from your clients or your clientele, I should say?
So right now we're actually doing really well with our ginger beer. It's a non-beer product. It's actually an alcoholic ginger soda. So it's more of Australian style, not too spicy, not too sweet, really refreshing. So we're finding a lot of people gravitating towards that. It's a little lighter in ABV. It's 4.5%. We're also looking at doing some lighter beer styles as well. So 3%, maybe 2.5%, kind of in and around there.
Cocktails, are you getting into that at all?
We do have cocktails in our tap room. We support all the local producers in Saskatchewan. So we have local liquor, local cider, all of that within our tap room.
Would you can a pre-mixed cocktail? Like, is that something that High Key would have on happening in the horizon at all?
So we can't have a distillery at our location, so we won't have like vodka or anything. So all of our non-beer items are fermented, so we're kind of sticking in that realm. So our ginger beer is closely to like a Moscow Mule. That's kind of what I compare it to, but no cocktail per se.
Yeah, okay. Ryan, I just have a minute before we have to get to news headlines, and then I want to get to some callers and some emails. But just how would you describe this moment? Like Mark in Regina says, busy as can be. How would you describe this moment for microbreweries?
For us, it's been pretty good. We had a great long, good weather fall, and that kept people coming out through this area down here and stopping in the tap room and that sort of thing. So, like, we're very reliant on traffic flow, and that was part of our business plan right from the get-go. And that's why we picked Maple Creek. There is a really good tourism sector down in this corner of the province, and a lot of people come through. So sometimes in the fall and even in January, when the weather's good, there's still people coming out, heading down to Cypress Hills to go skiing or snowshoeing or, ice fishing for the day. And they're passing through the area, and whatever brings them through town brings them in front of our building. So that, there's lots of reasons. And, whether they've been here once or been here 5 times, they know they can stop in, grab a fresh jug of beer, and away they go.
Today on Blue Sky, we're talking about beer, local beer, microbreweries. Give us a call today and share your thoughts. 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. That's what Chris did. He's on the line in Regina. Hello there, Chris.
Good afternoon. This is a topic near and dear to my heart.
I like to hear that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm a home brewer as well, but I'm also a huge fan of craft breweries, microbreweries. I think that they have done a huge service in changing the beer culture in North America, because I'm old enough to remember the days when it was pretty much Molson Canadian and Labatt's Blue in Canada, and it wasn't until I went off to Europe for a summer and got to taste real beer that I became a beer fan. It's unfortunate what's happening with, we've been hearing in the news lately that there's been quite a few craft breweries that are running into trouble. I'm guessing it's probably part of a normal business cycle where, something takes off and then a lot of people jump on the bandwagon and a sector tends to overexpand. So maybe this is just a little bit of, market consolidation. But I hope that here in Saskatchewan that the different companies are able to stay in business. I think Saskatchewan has got a really good beer culture for the size of our population. There's a lot of craft breweries in this province, which is great. Now, just as a final comment, as a beer drinker myself, and I really enjoy the taste of different things, but I think the IPA thing has been done to death. Enough with the hops already, guys. One type of beer that I would like to see more of, because it's really underrepresented in Canada, is Belgian styles. I mean, Belgium is like the beer capital of the world. That tiny country has something like, 250 different breweries. It's an amazing country for beer, and they offer a lot of interesting varieties, and I would like to see North Americans producing more of that style of beer. So those are my comments. I'll leave it at there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. That's Chris in Regina. You can call us too, 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. We've got 3 craft brewing founders with us today. Sean Moen, founder of 9 Mile Legacy Brewing in Saskatoon. Madeline Kahn, founder of High Key Brewing, also in Saskatoon. And Ryan Moncrief, who is founder of Rafter R Brewing in Maple Creek. Sean, I don't know if you want to talk about IPAs or Belgian beer, but I want to ask you about market consolidation, because 9 Mile did merge with Blackbridge from Swift Current. Can you just tell us a bit of the story? What led to that consolidation? What was happening there?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Chris, if we have some great Belgian style beer. I'm just going to put a plug in there. Come on up to Saskatoon. But yeah, it's interesting. We've been in business for just about 11 years. Blackbridge has been in business for just coming up on 12 years. And a few things happen in that time frame, I think. One of which is you don't totally appreciate you're going to become really good friends with people, with certain like-minded people, right? And Clayton and Carrie have long been great friends of Garrett and I in the industry. And the other thing is life happens. So Clay and Carrie have a couple of boys in university. They live outside the province. I think they're less inclined to be as active operationally day to day. And for us, we've got a team with a bunch of young parents, and so we're all pretty motivated to be growing a business. And so we've been chatting around this sort of relationship for the last several years, really, and realize that we can probably accomplish more and achieve greater things for our business, for our employees, our stakeholders, our community, by working together and levering into our respective strengths. So Clayton and Carrie are still involved in the joint venture. They're, they still own Blackbridge. We're making their beer with them and helping get it across the province, and it works really well for all of us.
But does it speak to the challenges that the industry is facing right now?
Well, I think if every one of our businesses is gangbusters and you're making more money than you can count, you're not changing your business model. That hasn't been the case, and I think a point that gets maybe ignored a little bit is the fact that in 2020 we went through a pandemic that made what we do illegal for the better part of 2 years. Right. And so we came through that period into an inflationary environment. A lot of the government relief programs were loan-based, variable rate loan-based. So into an inflationary environment where the Bank of Canada hiked interest rates, and it made business very difficult. And it caused a lot of hard decisions, like I talked about our decision with our tap room in 2023. So no, I think if things are totally rosy, you're not shifting your business model and getting creative. I think it's a complex question, as Mark alluded to, in terms of where the beer industry is, because it's the same question with the general economy. We have a little uncertainty south of us in Canada. We have some pressure to recreate our approach to local economy, particularly supply chains and food and beverage and logistics. And our industry is not immune from any of that. So, I don't think you're seeing movement in BC, Alberta. Saskatchewan's less, certainly. We've had a lot less attrition in Saskatchewan, if any. But you are seeing different partnerships and different approaches to business that speaks to the uncertain times we're in, but it doesn't speak to universally bad times.
Madeline, what are the pressure points, or what would you add to what Sean just shared there?
I think the supply chain is always tricky. We don't have economies of scale, so we're kind of buying things for 1, 2, maybe 3 batches at a time. So prices are always changing, and we're trying to keep our pricing to the consumer stationary. We want to keep it a value to them, and we want to make sure that we're still able to make ends meet and pay our employees well and all that stuff. So we're always kind of playing that game of where are COGS coming in at? How are we going to price this? How do we make things move? Mm-hmm.
Ryan, anything to add to that? What are you seeing as the pressure points right now for the industry?
Well, yeah, definitely, to speak to Sean's point about, coming out of the pandemic and everything like that and into an economy that was, putting constraints on where where you could make a dollar and where you couldn't. So, one of the things, with us opening during that real tumultuous time was that, it taught us to not get too set in your ways and keep your feet moving and that sort of thing. So be ready to, kind of change your plans and don't get too stuck. So, but yeah, it's tough when, freight costs have gone ridiculous for everything and everyone. And that's the thing with every one of the breweries in the province is product needs to come in so that you can create what you create. And then somehow product's got to go out. And there's a lot of money involved in freighting costs for ingredients and so on and so forth. And the economy in Canada right now is not super friendly in a lot of those aspects. So there's a lot of taxation pressure. Everything is, everything's taxed to death, coming in and going out. And at the end of the day, it is our consumers that end up paying the bulk of those costs.
Ryan, are you hearing about any closures in Saskatchewan?
Yes and no. There's always you hear a few things. So I do sit on the Saskatchewan Craft Brewers Association board as well. So you hear grumblings and rumblings throughout the industry. Now, I don't know if there's been an official announcement yet, but there's one of the breweries in Saskatoon that's got some stuff on the go. Like I said, I don't know if there's an announcement, so I'm going to leave it at that. But there's always talk about if things were a little better, I could do this, or if things were a little different, I could do that. And if things don't change, well, then maybe I got to change this. And at the end of the day, everybody's kind of got to do what makes the most sense. Whether it's a merger or just change it up, closing a tap room and going strictly distribution, or vice versa, whatever makes the most sense. So it's not so much closures right now as opposed to pivoting.
Sean, you actually put up your hand
as
you want to join the conversation.
Just to clarify, it's neither Madeline or I who have something going on in Saskatoon.
No. I know.
Just interject there, but I think I want to just underline for your listeners, the three of us don't have big lips sitting around the table at all. I mean, what we're trying to do is just explain all of the various external factors that we don't control that may be impacting industry volatility, because generally speaking, people look for easy answers. And the big easy answer that there's kind of two, I think, big easy answers that gets trotted out. One is that, well, the industry got oversaturated and there's a lot of crappy craft beer out there. That's not the case. We've got some excellent producers. Can we get better at going where consumers want us to go, listening to someone like Chris and maybe playing with styles other than IPAs? Absolutely we can, but we generally make really good beer. So I want to dispel that piece. The other piece is that, well, nobody's drinking anymore. I don't think there's less people drinking. I think people are drinking less. And this is to Mark's point. If you're going to have a little less money, or you're going to drink less for good health reasons or lifestyle reasons, or changing what I think were very bad lifestyle choices growing up of binge drinking and the culture we had in Saskatchewan around impaired driving, if you're going to make those changes and drink less, drink the best. And I think that's the proposition as a craft beer industry that we can provide to people. We're not only, rough and ready business owners that can respond to pandemics and trade disputes and inflation, but we also continue to create great community experiences, produce fantastic beer, and your money will not be wasted if you support us.
We have a caller on the line, but Madeline, I just want to give you a quick opportunity to jump in there, because we do hear that a lot, that people are drinking less. What's your take on that?
I agree wholeheartedly. I myself have a young daughter, so I'm not, going out to the bars as much, but I still really enjoy having a pint at home, or, with family, or in the tap room, even on like a Saturday afternoon, but obviously making sure that I'm getting around safe. And that's, again, kind of why we're brewing lower ABV beers. I've had non-alcoholic beer, especially when I was pregnant, but, I still want the real thing. And, a 3 to 4% beer is right up my alley.
Because sometimes they could be like 8%, or thinking of Bushwhackers and their mead.
There was a real experimentation phase in the industry and it still does push boundaries like that, but you're bang on. This low alcohol trend going into 2026 is terrific. And Ryan in Maple Creek makes one of the best low alcohol beers I've ever had in his mild.
Ryan, tell us about it.
Okay, well, an English dark mild, traditional, super traditional pub style beer, where the whole idea behind a beer like that is to go to the pub, sit down, visit, have a couple of pints, and have no intention of getting drunk. So at 3.3%, this mild, lots of flavor, lots of character, but low alcohol, and just a sit around and visit kind of beer.
Okay, let's go to a caller. We've got Larry in Rostern on the line. Hey, Larry.
Good afternoon.
What are you thinking about as you listen to this show?
What I would like to compliment the craft brewers on is the way they deal with community stuff. I'm speaking out of Rawson, Saskatchewan, and especially for Seeger Wheeler Farm. And we have really appreciated what Sean and Garrett have done at 9 Mile with creating a craft beer out of the heritage barley that we've been growing there, and how that has related to the community.
Sean?
Well, Larry's maybe given the short story of how that heritage barley was grown. He literally took it from the Seeger Wheeler seed bank and hand sowed it in the ground and harvested it, and it was propagated up over with Matt Enns at Makers Malty in Rossthern. And so we had an opportunity to tell a story and link back 100 years or so. Larry will correct me on the time frame, but appreciate the comment. A really tricky part for our business has been to recreate that community connection without a tap room. And so really reliant on partners like Larry. So appreciate the call.
Larry, thanks for calling. Anything else you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, just again, thanks to local brewers for that community effort.
Cheers.
Thanks, Larry. That's Larry in Rossthern. You can call us too, 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Now, speaking of community, I want to go back to Rebellion Brewing in Regina again. Here is Nicole Huck speaking with CEO Mark Heisey.
People often talk about craft breweries as being kind of community spaces as well. Besides serving good beer, what do you do to bring people in to foster that kind of sense of community?
Right, so again, since day one, we always viewed this as a gathering space, our tap room and the brewery. Some folks refer to it as your third place. So, a lot of folks have their home and they may have their workplace, and then they're looking for that third place where they belong and they fit in. And, and I've never wanted to be a bar or a nightclub. We're not open late. We don't offer shots, we always are trying to make sure that our customers have a safe way to get home, all that sort of stuff. We're kid friendly, we're dog friendly. We have coloring books and all sorts of things for the kids to play around with, and games, non-alcoholic beverages that are fun and interesting, lots of food. It's really meant to be a place for everyone. We've had all sorts of different political stripes have come through here. I've even seen some of them sit together and chat together. I mean, that feels pretty good in this day and age when you just see all this, this kind of hostility, where you're either, everything's so black and white, right? And well, it's kind of nice to offer that middle ground. It's like, you know what? Just by sitting at our bar here, we designed our bar to have this curve in it. So you kind of have to look at people that you maybe don't know, and you might overhear their conversation. And they jump in. They say, "I'm sorry, I overheard what you were saying," and and they have something else to add, and then who are you? And then they become best friends over that. That's really powerful, and I'm certainly not going to try to pretend that there isn't harms that can be caused with improper enjoyment of alcohol. I'm not gonna deny that, but you're starting to see some folks that are realizing that there is that social benefits to creating spaces like this where communities can truly come together, and it can be a very positive experience when done properly. We had a full place here on Sunday playing Dungeons and Dragons for 5 hours. That's pretty cool. I don't know. We'll have yoga sessions here, whatever you can think up. We'll have dog rescues. We'll have like little adoption days on our patio, or we might use the patio as like a bicycle tune-up day where the local bike shops will be here and they'll fix up your bike and tune up your bike for free, and just anything you can think of. I don't know. I got into this because I love making beer. I love drinking beer, to be quite honest, but it's so much more. It's so much more. It's so much bigger than that, and we just love telling that story.
There you go. Mark Heisey, CEO of Rebellion Brewing Company in Regina. Right across from me in our Saskatoon studio is Madeline Kahn, founder of High Key Brewing in Saskatoon. Madeline, what are your thoughts on a tap room as a space for community to gather? It's your place that Joggers and Loggers meets at, isn't it? The running group that then has beer right after?
Yeah, every Wednesday they show up, whether it's minus 30 or it's raining. They're real troopers. I'm not a runner, so kudos to them for getting out there and doing it. But yeah, they come every Wednesday and hang out and have a beer. And we're also working with a few other local groups. Their Soft Spot YXE is doing kind of like a more chill DJ night in March. And there's lots of different groups that we work with and kind of give them the space to play around and do what they want to do and bring their community together.
And why do people tend to gather in a tap room? Like, what makes a tap room different than a bar or a coffee shop? Like, what is unique to a microbrewery that makes it that kind of space where people will show up, pull out a board game, and have their kids running around?
I think from the very beginning, we've always tried to have our tap room be very family friendly and be a place that isn't full of TVs and distraction. We've always had crib board games out and different things like that. We want it to be place where things happen around the cup. It's not always what's in the cup. So you can have conversations. You can, like Mark said, meet new people. You can, we give the space away usually for free if we have a good turnout of people that's able to, make it work. And we really just want to give people an opportunity to come together.
And you serve food at High Key too,
we
right?
do. We have a full kitchen. So when we moved, we knew that we wanted food to be a big part of it too. So people can enjoy appies and handhelds and all that fun stuff.
Ryan in Maple Creek. This is Ryan Moncrief, founder of Rafter R Brewing in Maple Creek. You don't serve food, right? But you allow people to bring in their own food?
Yeah, you can you can bring your lunch from home if you want and sit down and have a beer at whenever. That's fine by me. What we did is we just put a board up with all the local restaurants and stuff that'll do food and whatever. You can order. Some of them deliver. Some you can stop and pick up. That way we figured it would, in a smaller town like Maple Creek, it incorporates working with your neighbors as opposed to, directly competing with them on that front. So, at the end of the day, I wanted to make beer and, serve beer to people and that sort of thing. I didn't want to mess around with food myself. So I completely understand why breweries do it. But like I said, I didn't want to muddy the waters with some, cardboard pizza when there's great places making a good pie in town here. And they in turn end up sending people over here, and it's a lot of good cross promotion for us. So like I said, it works for us. It might not work for the next brewery down the road.
Sean, am I making you miss your tap room?
Well, there's a bit of that. I'm actually sitting here smiling and inspired by my colleagues and their approach to how they've built communities. I think I've always been a bit shucks about I see a disproportionate amount of media coverage for our industry and why people are so drawn to it. And a couple themes that come out just listening to Madeline and Ryan is there's a real warmth and authenticity in our industry that approaches collaboration, not from a transactional perspective, but listening intently and with the point of how can I help the people that are working with me, and that's just bled through these stories, and it's just to me, I find it inspiring, and I'd love to see more of that in our broader economy. I think the other reason why people are drawn to our community is we're one of the few examples of ag value on the food and beverage side in Saskatchewan on a broad industry basis. Now, there's several initiatives throughout the province, I think, that are coming along, whether it's the great snack food at Three Farmers or other examples, but really brewing is and distilling as well is an example of what we can do from an ag value perspective and create millions of revenue spin-off and hundreds of jobs.
Like not just growing barley, but turning it into beer. And supporting the people that are serving that beer. So you think throughout, whether it's food, beverage, textiles, energy, there's a whole bunch of different things we can do on a micro level as an industry. And our industry, I think that's probably, as much as I want our industry to really change beer culture and encourage people to enjoy the great products we make, to inspire our province to invest in broader economies filled with micro producers. I think that's the real stuff. You're doing that because you may not have a tap room, but you've got other things going on at 9 Mile.
We've got other things going on.
An innovation lab. Do you want to just talk quickly about some of the things that are happening?
It's essentially it's a small scale brewery within a brewery, but it's a separate entity in our business. Think of it as a skunk works where you're innovating and you're pushing the envelope with the idea of disrupting your core business. But we've managed with LGCY Innovation Hub enter into MOUs with the university, with the Food Center, with the Global Institute for Food Security, all with the idea of providing scale-up support for startup businesses or providing space for innovative companies to experiment. So we've got a nutraceutical company in there right now renting the space. We are about to launch a non-alcoholic product with Wanuskewin, which we'll get into a little bit further. But lots of different disruptive ideas, and you just kind of have to make space for that as a business. And the sky's the limit with what our industry can achieve and aspire, I think.
I want to share a couple emails here. So Jim writes, Even back in the last century, my two favorite complaints were I live in the middle of the best wheat and barley growing place on this planet, yet it was nearly impossible at the time to buy a decent loaf of bread or a proper beer. Times have changed, and in my mind, there is just something proper about drinking beer that was brewed in the cellar of the place I'm drinking it. Whenever possible, I prefer a locally brewed beer, starting in the 1990s with Cheers on 8th Street in Saskatoon, Bushwhacker in Regina, and now many others. I don't think they'll ever completely go away, but are facing a market correction. Most booms are faced by a bust, and once the market is oversaturated, they all suffer. The demographic is changing, aging out. I don't drink as much as I used to. Societal pressure. It's no longer acceptable to drive after a few beers. And economics. Money is tight in many cases. But those microbreweries that got into this because they wanted to, love making a good brew, will survive. Those who got in because they're chasing a trend, he ends with a question mark. Paul sent us an email. Saskatchewan makes great beer. I haven't bought any beer from out of province for years. I have a hard time understanding why people would support foreign corporations instead of the people of Saskatchewan. Nobody from Budweiser will ever push you out of a snowbank. The only complaint I have is they don't have enough singles or variety packs. Support your neighbors. Go Riders. P.S. I love Churchill River Brewery's lager. And Sarah writes, hi, my name is Sarah, and I'm the media director for the Ales Club. I just wanted to let people know about the homebrew club in Regina called the Ales Club. We meet every first Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. at Bushwhackers in the club room, which is in the basement, and we talk about beer, how to make beer, and how to improve as a home brewer. It's a nice place to come and learn more about our hobby. Everyone is welcome. Sarah, thanks for emailing. You can email us anytime, even once we're off the air, bluesky@cbc.ca. I'll give you each 30 seconds to just kind of wrap up because, we've unpacked a lot in terms of this current moment and, nobody really knows where things are headed. But Ryan, what parting words do you want to leave people with today?
Well, we could talk doom and gloom all day long, but honestly, I don't think there's a bust in the industry right now. There is a lot of talk about how craft beer's dead, but I really don't think that's the case. I think we've touched on a lot of different factors, but at the end of the day, I think we are actually hitting more of a plateau and not so much going down the hill on the other side. And that means that, the days of just whatever you throw out there is going to sell, and there was people beating your door down to grab it. Things have to be a little bit more targeted and a little bit more directed. And, everybody sees that. You're a little more picky about which beer you make and how you make them and directing your business to what your customers are asking.
Madeline, you were nodding along there.
Yeah, I'm really excited for 2026. We have a lot on the go. We have a lot of different plans. We're investing in our back brew house. We're looking at different revenue streams. We're bringing on new people into our business. So, we're really excited for what's to come and kind of how the industry is going to change and evolve. And we're just maturing as a business in general. So we're just refining things, trying to make our product better, just trying to be a more mature company.
Sean, do you have a crystal ball? I mean, what's next, do you think?
No, I don't have a crystal ball, but I will say that in my view, beer is the ultimate connective tissue, well beyond the great liquid and flavor and the way it makes you smile. It is one of the best mediums to connect with somebody and to have good conversation. And I think that in the current fraught times, what we need is to have good conversation, to be able to rely on our neighbors and build resilient community together. So I think for your listeners, if they take anything from this hour of great conversation, if it was of value, I encourage them to invite somebody out that they haven't seen in a while. Go out and support one of our local bars or restaurants and order a local beer and have some great conversation.
Sounds like a great idea. This has been wonderful. I'd like to thank all three of you. Ryan, thank you.
You're welcome to the invite.
And Madeline, thanks to you. And Sean, thanks to you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Madeline Kahn is founder of High Key Brewing in Saskatoon. Sean Moen, founder of 9 Mile Legacy Brewing in Saskatoon. And Ryan Moncrief, who is founder of Rafter R Brewing in Maple Creek.